Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Matthew Messier. I'm joined by Merrymen, and today we're going to be doing a podcast about the coronavirus. So, thanks for joining me on my YouTube channel, guys. Really appreciate it. Taking your times out of your busy schedules to address this absolutely catastrophic world event that is occurring right now. This virus that has already caused so much financial and physical turmoil throughout the world. And I guess what we'll do is we'll start out with what Gold has what his feelings about this is, because right now it seems like things are going to get worse before it gets better. But I don't. Yeah, go for
I
it.
definitely agree with you on that statement. Definitely things seem to be getting worse before they get better. Again, I'm from New York. I'm deal within the financial sector and the information technology sector. For you guys playing games out there, we're fine. Definitely people are using way more bandwidth than usual. On the financial aspect of things, things couldn't get worse right now. Supply chains are definitely going to become an issue. And again, this has grown day by day. I mean, I'm just glad we're not Europe and not China right now, but we may get there eventually. Um, I'll be discussing more about that in my segment. And Matt, you can continue.
Yeah, so what exactly... okay, so we got Toast here, who's actually quite knowledgeable in medicine. Would you mind tell for people that don't know, what exactly are the medical complications that occur from COVID-19?
I believe it's pretty straightforward. So I think most people have heard what complications are associated with this virus. So as most people probably know, it starts off usually asymptomatic, and then typically turns into mild symptoms like dry cough, fatigue, that sort of thing. And it's usually occupied by fever as well. But some of the more serious conditions that can arise from this is also a viral pneumonia, which is typically associated with other pre-existing conditions such as hypertension, diabetes, cardiovascular diseases. But it's also been shown that from aside with the pneumonia that's associated with this, is that it can also cause other kinds of complications like sepsis, cytokine storms, and even potentially damage to other organs. And I'm not too sure how valid that is. I don't know if you guys have any knowledge on that. Matt, do you have anything to share in regards to whether
Well,
or not it
I
can
am
cause
aware
damage to
that
other organs?
I am aware that the lungs do fill up with liquid and it causes the blood to go. It causes people to go hypoxic, and that's basically what has been killing a lot of people. They usually have to get rushed onto ventilators and get machines to breathe for them. And if this keeps continuing, hospitals are going to get extremely strained. And not only that, but the economy and the supply chain issues that Gold was just talking about. It's definitely something that I think people need to just really take sit down and have a talk about this up in the Senate and all that, because as he did come out and say, okay, we'll give out the Trump bucks and all that, and that's fine and dandy. But then I've seen a recent article, I believe, where a woman that wasn't insured that didn't have health insurance had to fork a bill of $34,000 to get treated for the virus. So you've also got,
I did see that.
You've got finances are such a huge issue, and they've always been an issue as a worldwide, because to be completely frank. But now it seems to be really pushing the limit of what people can handle. But I do believe there is some hope. I mean,
can we just jump back a little bit, just in terms of the healthcare system? So
in
the U.S., I'm sure the three members that are with us that are in the U.S., I'm sure we can all agree upon that the healthcare system is kind of bloated. It doesn't really run very efficiently. It's a
case by case basis. Yeah, I would definitely agree with
that. Matt, if you can just provide us a little bit more context in terms of the healthcare in your country relative to the U.S., what are your feelings on that?
Yeah, sure. So basically, our government here is, well, we've been a moderate right government for a long time at this point, and you know, we have healthcare here. I mean, I'm covered by healthcare. I don't have to pay any money when I go in for a checkup. I get bulk billed, blah blah blah. But that being said,
Now, is this reflected in your taxes at all?
yeah, I believe some of that money is used to pay for it, I believe. I'm not 100% sure about that. I kind of don't really pay much attention to it, but you know, it's I would assume it's paid with taxes. But yeah, I think we have something called a GST here, which is a goods and services tax, which, you know, makes a lot of money by itself. So, you know, but yeah, the healthcare system here is okay, but there is limited supply. Like, that we do not have nearly enough of a strong medical infrastructure as a lot of other countries, and it would be quite easy for us to implode on ourselves once.
So just one more last thing in regards to this. So, how are your autumns and winters in Australia? If you can tell that to the rest of your listeners here, because you guys are getting close to the winter solstice.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's starting to cool down. And
so I'd imagine that it's going to start outbreaking a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just saying, because actually last year, there was a few influenza viruses floating around during summertime, which is pretty funny. But this now that we've got the coronavirus in full force right now, and because it's going to be getting colder, people are going to be, you know, catching the cold, catching the flu, etc. I do believe that will help accentuate the virus's impact on Australia. Maybe not by a large margin, but it should be rather noticeable. My worry about that is because by the time winter does roll around here, the virus would have started to really peak, and my fear is that it could actually be quite a catastrophic event when that does happen. But I
just
don't
as a kind of a counterpoint to Toast over there. Again, I'm not going to claim to be any type of medical professional, but I have not seen anything as to say that this is a temperature-sensitive type disease. Again, you have places on the equator that have it over in Northern Africa. You have South America that has it, and of course, it's spring over here in the U.S. And we just passed, and over in New York, we had 55-degree days, beautiful weather out there. And again, the count of people over here, we're approaching 10,000 people that have this, and the infection seems to keep spreading more and more. Explain to me the data you have as far as this may be a temperature or a seasonal sensitive based disease. Thank you.
Well, I just think that just from what we've seen with how stable the virus is on surfaces, that's kind of alarming in and of itself. As for whether or not it has a sort of temperature-sensitive mechanism to keep itself more virulent outside of the body, I'm not entirely sure exactly. It's still something that we should consider because yes, spring is coming through. Summer is eventually going to turn around here in the U.S. But what we do usually know about viruses in general is that viruses tend to do a lot better in colder weather, just because it doesn't disrupt the natural protein integrity or the membrane that's surrounding it usually.
And then in that case, would you say a quarantine would almost be worse because you have a lot of people indoors in confined places?
Yes.
With other people.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
And that's usually why influenza breaks out so much in the winter. It is not only because it's so violent, but it's because people are in closer quarters.
Thank you.
Yeah, and people are in closer quarters during summertime because, you know, everyone's out on the beach. You know, they're all huddled up, laying in the sun. You know, it's quite.
That's also true.
It's quite easy for viruses to just spread just like that. Like, you know.
In Australia, you have extreme heat, so would also the reverse case happen? Since it's so hot, nobody's going outside, so people are staying indoors.
Yeah,
that's another way.
I can tell you from experience, I sure as hell didn't go out much during summertime here. It's ridiculous. But yeah.
The thing is that we just don't know too much about how this virus adapts or survives outside of the body. It's only what the first instance of it reported, at least to the West, was in mid-January, I think, or something like that. It may have been reported a little bit earlier to the rest of the world, but honestly, dude, we just don't have that much information about this virus. The only real stuff that we can really look at to peer into seeing how stable it is outside of the body is just by looking at the first iteration of it, and that's the first SARS virus.
Yeah, even in kind of my field, speaking to people with medical, obviously, dealing with finance, you talk to people in multiple different industries. Doctors I speak to are terrified. They are absolutely terrified of what this is, and they just see an expansion rate. I mean, we're on pace to beat H1N1, and every report seems to be worse and worse from this.
I don't think they're terrified. I think they're just being very cautious. I think there's a difference between those two.
Oh yeah, I definitely say that, but I've never seen medical professionals act like this before in my life, where they're just like, be very careful, keep your loved ones safe. We don't know about this. Pretty much, coronavirus equals question mark is what I'm getting. Again, this is kind of how this started as far as our first report out of China, and we're kind of like, oh yeah, maybe it's susceptible to Asian people. Oh, hey, that's not true. Okay, then maybe it's just older people, and now we're getting reports out of France and Germany where you have a 16-year-old boy who wound up dying, and also another child of 8 years old that wound up dying in France, and without any previously existing medical condition. So then there's the other theory of blood type. It's, again, everybody's kind of throwing darts at the walls, hoping for something to stick with this. And again, as for me, I don't know what to believe. I don't know. I mean, expect the worst, is the best way to do it, and hope for the best is what I can say.
Well then,
should we go into a little bit of the background behind this? I'm sure your listeners have at least gotten a brief understanding of it, but maybe we should summarize what exactly is going on here, how it started. Obviously, how it started is kind of still a big question mark because we're not getting a lot of cooperation from the CCP. But let's just kind of get a brief idea of that. What do you think, Matt?
Well, I do believe the virus did originate from Wuhan. Well, that's what they're telling us anyway. I believe it was some sort of accident or in a laboratory or something like that. There's a lot of theories floating around of where the virus actually originated from. Some people say it was from animals, or we all know the famous meme of the bat soup and all that. But it's really hard to 100%. Look, it's as much information that's getting thrown around about the virus right now. I don't think anyone has really given us a definite origin of this virus, but what they've told us, it's definitely from China, and it's spread rather rapidly because naturally, a country like China, where people are packed together so tightly, it causes viruses like this to just spread explosively, and it becomes an issue so quickly, and it becomes a bigger issue when the government that is supposed to be supplying us with information decides to cover it up instead, because quite honestly, this whole thing has made China look really bad, and the government definitely is not helping by concealing information and lying to their people, and dragging people by their hands and feet out of their homes and throwing them in the back of trucks like animals.
Well, they're also compromising the rest of the world as well.
Mm-hmm, exactly. It's
and to kind of be fair, our Western governments aren't doing much better here.
Oh, yeah.
The Italian government had an awful response to this, and the American government, we should have closed our borders with Europe and China way earlier than we did already.
Absolutely. But
And
with the political environment the way it is, it just wouldn't have gone well. It would have
the
been
right
viewed
v
as
left thing, yeah.
it just would have been a nightmare for Trump, honestly.
Kind of speaking also from a personal experience with this, you're getting to a state where, yeah, China exports most of the goods and services around the world to pretty much everybody. The issue we're going to start to see here is packages are going to wind up becoming late. Manufacturing is going to be slowing down. I mean, you're talking about car manufacturing, luxury products manufacturing, computer manufacturing, you name it, is slowing down as we speak right now.
It also compounds with the raw materials as well.
Oh yeah,
So
exactly.
we also need to consider that too. So even though the U.S. has little amount of manufacturing it actually does anymore, it still relies on China for cheap steel, for example, or concrete or any of that stuff. So it's going to feed back into itself, even on the raw material part of it.
And then even going on top of that with the medical infrastructure. I mean, think of it again. There's the common, Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Medicare, and everything like that. There's only so much that even in a capitalistic type of medical infrastructure that we have in the United States, it's only going to be able to support so much. Even if you're going to be paying doctors left and right to, take out a loan in order to survive this thing, it's going to cripple the medical sector.
I mean, how is it going to really matter at this point, dude? We have such a massive budget deficit anymore that it just doesn't seem like it's ever going to go away. It just seems like we're always going to be in debt.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a conversation for another time. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of things being drawn from honestly the Treasury and so forth.
I just want to get your opinion on this, Gold. Do you think that we're going to see a global recession? If we do, which countries do you think are going to get the most impacted?
Well, obviously the origin point would be China. China definitely is probably the one that's going to be impacted most. Think about any country right now that has taken out a lot of loans in order to take care of their weak and so forth. The European Union is going to be under extreme strain after this, and I mean absolutely extreme strain, because you're talking about universal healthcare. And this is a very important thing, trying to get healthcare for those workers. I understand why these countries are going into quarantine. Think about this. You're not able to get somebody medical care, properly in the right amount of time. You're going to expand the disease like crazy. Most cashiers, people who are working paycheck to paycheck in America, don't have, substantial amount of healthcare. They don't have great healthcare. So what happens is you have a small cloth.
As we're feeding back into what Matt just brought up about how this one person had to pay like $30,000 or something like that for their coronavirus treatment or testing.
Americans are not going to be able to afford that.
No.
And it's going to have a compounding effect, and of course the interest rate that's going to raise from that.
Now, going back to the European Union, I know we're kind of jumping around here, but it just, the one thing that I've been thinking about is we've seen this happen before in history, where when tough times happen, Europe, i.e. Germany, it seems that we start to see a far-right movement begin to grow out of it. And in most cases, it ends up being extreme. What do you guys... Well, let's start with Matt. What do you think about that?
Oh, boy. Well, the internet is a great place to begin researching this topic, because all you have to do is take a couple looks at 4chan, and you could see all of these types of people on there constantly posting their memes and whatnot. And at some point, there's always going to be this group of people that are just going to be there that blow their trumpets and try to educate people. But there's always going to be one or two people that will just take it too far and end up doing something terrible. And that's what usually happens. But with this whole virus thing, I think, because it's such a huge problem right now, that I think people are legitimately very very careful, because this is something that has to be fixed. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's not something we could sit here and meme about all day. This is an actual medical historical crisis.
Yeah.
And it just goes
And
beyond memes.
It's not really what it kind of goes even beyond the pandemic itself, right? It's the direct implications that it can cause.
For example, speaking of politics, Taiwan, one of the first nations to really jump on top of this when China started, explaining what was going on. They were one of the first countries to close their borders. They were like, we're not doing anything with China. We're closing things out. And still, to this day, Taiwan, which is right in the middle of Asia, is still at sub 100 levels for people infected, and we're seeing a 25% recovery rate right now. There's 25 people that have recovered from the coronavirus in Taiwan. They reacted real quick. They shut everything down. They made sure nobody come in. Yeah,
it does sound like it sounds like a good story and all, but how do we know that this isn't just due to a shortage of testing kits?
That is another aspect as well. Now, I'll go back to your point on testing kits. On the political aspect, you're actually probably going to see at the end, when we get the more hard data and so forth, how many nations decide to close their borders, and how many nations wound up becoming less affected by this whole disease and so forth like that. You're definitely going to see a rise in nationalism, especially in Europe and probably Asia. On the aspect of governments lying about, how many people they have, how many victims they have. I mean, Turkey is notorious for that. And I have a contact out of India who also says the Indian government is lying about the amount of people they have there too. So yeah, is it happened? Governments are definitely lying about the cases they have because they want to continue the reports for trade and so forth like that. Why do you think China is basically pretending right now everything's, hunky dory? Go ahead, Toast.
Now, I have heard some reports that, some manufacturers in China are going back to work.
They have no choice, to be fair.
That is so
For sure.
horrible. I can't believe they can do that to their people. I mean, I saw a video of some school kids are back in school now, and they're all wearing masks on their face. And, during this... it doesn't make any sense to me. Why are you endangering your people like that? It's so inhumane.
The answer is simple, dude. They're all replaceable. It's true.
Yeah.
Look, it's just how it is in China. Unfortunately, they don't have human rights. They don't. But how do we address that? How do we make it better for them?
We could, like what we were talking, like what America was, the president was talking about, trying to deal with North Korea. Now the thing is, China is a huge, economic, probably
They're
not
juggernaut,
so
dude.
Yeah, exactly. So we have to make sure we do what's right for them, but we also have to make sure that.
Well, as Stefan and Styx have usually pointed out, they usually vent their frustrations not on the Chinese people themselves, but on their government, the CCP. And that's what we need to really be talking about, is how the CCP has been fucking this up.
Oh yeah, and China has honestly done a terrible job with this. But unfortunately, I wish the West came out stunned and be like, hey, listen, this is how you take care of a virus. We didn't do a great job either. Germany has done a terrible job. Oh. Italy has done an even worse job. Spain, you're looking at numbers doubling at this point. We don't know when this stops. And on top of that, yes, I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's all about the money. Here, guys, listen, coming from somebody who works in finance, I'm going to tell you this. Right now, you think the stock market doesn't affect you. It will. One day you're gonna go up to your CVS and you're like, why aren't there supplies here? Why did this store close down? Oh, that was a great place. I used to go there all the time. Why did that place close down? You're talking about the double domino effect of the fragile economic system we have with world trade.
And this has been going on for decades now. But I mean, we started to see more of it appear even before the Great Recession of 2008. I mean, most of us, let's face it, at the time were in high school. Maybe Matt, you were probably like a little bit older than us. So I mean, we kind of had some element of understanding what was going around us. But
Yeah, around
now
2009.
now that this is happening, when we're like we're getting pretty close to 30s in some cases, we could definitely appreciate how this is going to impact our lives in very unexpected ways, unfortunately, and we're just have to wait and see what happens.
I just kind of wanted to ask kind of the table real quick. What do you guys think about this being a generational defined event? For example, 9/11 kind of defined our generation.
Oh, the recession went from 2007 to 2009. Oh, never mind. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
But I was saying, as far as like this being a generational defined event, like, oh, you guys are the 9/11 generation. You dealt with the impact of that. Are we gonna see the coronavirus as something such as that, or?
Most definitely.
Yoshi, kind of want to add you into the conversation. What's your opinion on all of this?
Well, I do think it does have the potential to be to have a generational impact. Like, I don't know if we might put in like a different category than like a 9/11 or a Pearl Harbor, because those are just like sudden one-day events. And of course, like, I mean, 9/11 though had like lasting
Patriot Act, ripple effects, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, so this could have like a ripple effect as well. So
now,
this could be kind of analogous to, like, as most people have described it, as a slow detonating nuke instead of a tornado.
See, again, I'm coming from a heavily populated region of the world, and obviously things are definitely becoming way more lockdown mode. You have National Guard, doing checkpoints around here. I'm from the greater New York region, and you have people out there masked all the time. 2 weeks ago, like before this really came to New York, we had less than 100 cases. I remember just riding the subway, everybody was wearing masks. I remember, but then you go down another street and people were not aware with it. Unfortunately, it's people with a lot of language barriers, a lot of Spanish people, and
I think there's another thing going on. And sorry to interrupt, but apparently, I'm sure you guys heard it on the media at some point, but there was some claims saying like, oh, so the COVID-19, it doesn't have any community spread. Well, it's starting to seem like it does now, doesn't it? Considering how the cases in your region, Gold, it seems to be exploding at the moment.
Yeah, and I think definitely it explains also the Italian community and Italian culture definitely are very touchy, hands-on, kisses, and so forth. Even the guys give hugs to each other and so forth. A little bit less so than the Germanic and what you call Celtic communities. There's definitely more and again, those are ways. Unfortunately, those are great ways to express love and so forth. But unfortunately, it's gonna lead to more people getting sick. There are a lot of Italians in New York. 80% of Long Island has some sort of lineage from Italy. A lot within that region, and also think about you can have great grandparents, you have grandparents that come from Italy. There's a lot of trade between those two regions. It doesn't surprise me. New York, out of all the states in the United States, winds up having the most cases. Yoshi, on the polar opposite end, your state's known for being survivalist, isolationist over there, and you kind of would you like to give just a kind of explanation of like how your state's response compared to New York?
So, I mean, our state, right now we're currently at 12 infected people.
Yeah, I think Alaska's at 12, yeah.
Yes. So, from what I've seen, like, even though it's just at 12, we're taking it extremely seriously. And the thing is, like, yeah, it may only be 12, but like the last time our census was taken, we have only 700,000 people, which, I mean, New York, on the other hand, is
20 million approximately.
20 million, yeah.
And then most of them just live on a very small island. So
Yeah, and like
density is definitely
70%.
something to play with it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you're not
then,
even
like,
including
in
New Jersey
each-
or Connecticut.
Yeah, and then like in each of these cities, even like smaller communities. So like if like even one person gets it, like everybody starts freaking out. A lot of places have just completely shut down. Like you can only. I don't know if it's like this in your guys' states, but you for food like. You have to like only the drive-throughs open. Like you can't dine in anywhere. You can't go into like a Starbucks. And
Oh wow,
think
your
that's-
response is quick. Wow, that's surprising.
Well,
Yeah,
I think most of the states that haven't really experienced too much of a outbreak are starting to look at states like us, Gold, and they're like, maybe we should preemptively put these provisions in place. Otherwise,
And it's going to help those states in the long run. Like honestly, like if you told me where I would be 2 weeks ago, oh, forget about it. I would have been stocking way more crazily than I did already. And again,
Well,
I
let's
knew about
face
this
it,
2
dude.
months ago.
Let's face it, dude. Most people don't know how to deal with a pandemic. When was the last time we had to deal with a pandemic? Swine
Oh,
flu?
well, that wasn't really even that big for over here in the United States. Like,
Yeah,
when it
neither
came
was
down-
Well, it was-
MERS, I don't think, either.
SARS
MERS,
was mostly an Asia thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, that right now, as far as like detection per day, that's beating both those right now. So this is gonna be bigger than that.
Yeah, because there was a total of 2,494 laboratory confirmed cases of MERS.
Yeah. So you're talking about a way bigger outbreak.
Yes.
Now, in terms of like food shortages or anything, so let's just kind of go down the row. So, Gold, do you want to just talk about what you've been seeing in your supermarket?
And I guess I'll go
Yeah, I've seen
to
some
Yoshi
stuff.
and then you toast.
Sure.
And then Matt, I guess we'll end with you.
Mhm.
So for me, first I was still going into work in and out every day. About basically 2 weeks ago, things were generally normal. There was some concern, like I was saying, some people were wearing masks. A week ago, everybody was wearing masks. Last week, everybody was, on top of that, wearing masks. And now again, we are recording this on March 20th, and pretty much we're in full lockdown mode. And there's still, rumors that we might go into full quarantine. And
Now, I
don't
just
wanna
want to
call it a
interrupt you, Gold, just real quick.
Go ahead.
So, can you just tell the listeners exactly what you mean by full lockdown mode
versus quarantine.
in terms of what kind of freedoms you still have and what you cannot do, and whether or not there's restrictions or curfews or anything like that?
Okay, so right now, I'm from Long Island. New York City is kind of a different beast with that. This is more suburbs. We are not technically in a lockdown, but I forget the exact term. But here's basically what we have right now.
It's a shelter in place, right?
No, shelter in place is worse than a lockdown.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, shelter in place is basically quarantine with a nice name. You get fined if you go out in a city that has shelter in place. That's what Italy has right now, is basically shelter in place. Lockdown is non-essential personnel would stay home. Anybody who's doing sales, anybody who's doing luxury goods, so on. Essential food places, with some exceptions, are staying open. You're talking Walmart, Target, CVS, Walgreens, you name it. Places like that, those are staying. Your local bakery is most likely going to close. Your local deli is most likely going to close. They're going to try to minimize the amount of contact between people and so forth. You can drive to wherever you want. A lot of parks are closed. The National Guard a couple of days ago, there were certain checkpoints they had, and it's more just like they can't really do anything, but they're going to ask you where you're going, and they're probably just filling out reports to kind of know where people are traveling to, and so in case there was an outbreak in one town, they can kind of close that town and isolate it off or whatever.
So they want to make a paper trail, basically.
They want to make a paper trail, and they want to make sure none of this gets any worse and so forth. So
But
I'm glad that
in terms of your rights, they're not really infringing too much upon them, if I'm understanding this correctly.
Yeah, they're not infringing on your rights per se. New York City has a curfew. You cannot go past 8 p.m. And I think the earliest you can go out is 7 a.m. as of right now.
Now, are they able to arrest you?
Yeah, they're most likely going to be arresting you or at least fine you. It depends on the officer, but they're going to
arrest you. That could cause even more problems now, couldn't
it? Speaking of arrests, Rikers Island has a few suspected cases of coronavirus, and that might go through the prison population. And there are a lot of people that are politicians that are thinking, why don't we just release not like some people who are just doing drug crimes and so forth like that. But other people are afraid, well, now these people will get back on the street and start selling drugs again. Somebody coughs on, whatever your stash is, gives it to somebody, you could spread it even worse. There's a lot of logistical issues going on over here trying to stop this and isolate this. But anything that seems to be attempted seems to be getting more. Of course, the numbers are going to go up because finally we get in drive-through testing kits.
Yeah, so the testing capabilities have increased significantly, and that's great. It's good to know exactly what we're dealing with, because right now
there's 4 in Suffolk County right now, and I think there are a few in Nassau, and New York City has a few as of this point.
I think we're going to see a lot of cases show up very quickly, and that's mostly because the testing capabilities have increased. I don't think anyone that's listening to this should be really shocked. If you're shocked, I don't know what to tell you, because I think most people have understood that this virus is very contagious, and
it's somewhere between an R naught of 4 and R naught of 6.
Everyone has different numbers. I've heard it as low as 2, 3-ish or so, but regardless, it's still very infectious, and it does hide below the radar. It doesn't always create symptoms.
Now, I've been seeing shortages of toilet paper. Water bottles has been another thing that's been in short supply. Yoshi, how about on your coast over there on the West Coast? How's supply chains and how those are getting disrupted over there?
So with toilet paper, there is also a shortage up here. A few different stores, they get stocked every other day, and they'll open even as early as 6 a.m. and people rush in to get the supply. I mean, at least it is coming in on a regular schedule. It's just you have to show up at a certain time, and you're limited to how much you can buy. I've noticed shortages, of course, on sanitizing products. I think what else I might have.
Now you guys have more of a prepper-based culture, is from what I understand, versus here in New York, where it's it's gonna be fine until basically, what hits the fan. Then it's not fine. We go from one extreme to another over here in New York.
The prepper thing, something I didn't even think of, that would run out was the other day I went to get cereal, and you can get these huge bags of cereal. That's what I usually get. Those were completely wiped out. So I had to get a couple of I had to get a couple of boxes of the normal size. That was something I didn't think would run out.
That's
I guess,
interesting, because in my parts, it doesn't seem like people are going after the cereal that much. They were just going after perishables, and
they're smarter in Alaska. They know.
Yeah.
They've been prepping the second they arrived at the state.
Well, God bless them, man.
They're the ones that will live through this, honestly.
That's for sure. So, Matt, what about you? What have you been
seeing and so forth over in Australia? Different country, different kind of culture, so be interesting.
Well, basically the same as you guys, more or less. No toilet paper. Actually, a lot of the meat is gone as well. I actually went into the city yesterday. I went to my local Coles supermarket, and literally everything was gone. All the meat was completely gone. and it was
The
only
chicken was gone here. Yeah.
It was only like 12 p.m. in the afternoon, and it was already completely wiped out. So obviously, people are starting to stock up on food. It seems, and toilet paper is obviously not there either.
That's the meme, man.
Or,
it's the meme. It's just spread across the world.
I can actually, when I get some time, I'll actually show you guys a picture, because I did snap a picture of it. Actually, let me just upload it into the podcast chat for you guys, that you can see exactly what I'm talking about here. Yeah, it's not good. It's really bad. You know, what do you do when you run out of like toilet paper? You buy a bidet or move to Europe. You know, what do you do? I mean, it's just,
Yeah, move to Europe. It's got a good idea.
The image isn't uploading, so but you guys get the idea. I will. You know,
another thing that kind of went out by me. I'm sorry to cut you off. But,
it's all right. I'm just gonna plug my iPod into the computer.
Yeah. People were. I saw a line at the banks. People have been withdrawing money out of their bank accounts like rapidly, and I'm not sure if they think we might lose electricity or the communications structure might be disrupted. But I've been noticing that a lot, where a lot of people are using cash payments. I'm actually against that, because I think somebody has a virus. Honestly, money's like one of the easiest way to spread it. Like, so you're going straight to cash payments with that. I mean, I understand the logic, but I think it's kind of flawed logic.
I think that panic likes to sow more panic. Personally, it likes to cause more panic, and that's the issue that we're experiencing right now. And most people have already defined this.
It's like unjustified panic. It's like, it's the stupidest type of panic. Unlike Yoshi state, where it's like, okay, well, you know, we're probably going to be low on these supplies. Let's grab this. You know, people are going to go for cash payments. People are going to.
And I know we've been seeing a lot of people die in Italy, but they do have an aging population, and we do need to consider that as the prime reason for why people are dying is because they're just old, man. It's kind of clear. Most people that die from this are pretty old. They're in their 70s, 80s. I mean, I know we've seen some deaths in like the 30s or 40s or anything like that. I think we also saw someone even pretty young.
A few teens, actually, yeah. I've said the same before.
But if you look at it statistically, it's still more likely that it's going to be some older person. And we have to consider that. We can't just say, oh, the death rate is whatever we see now, like 4% or something like that of the people that are infected. But of that 4%, it's like probably 80-90% of them are older people.
See, the thing is also about my region is you have the people. It's almost bipolar around here. You have the people that go extreme. They're gonna barricade their houses. They're gonna stay indoors, and they're gonna be super preppers, and they got all their food, and they're basically eating canned foods for basically the next month or so. You have on the other side people who are just like, it's just like another spring break, and it's like a little vacation for me. And they're walking with their dog, and talking to people, and they still are giving each other handshakes, and it's a nothing burger for them. They're not taking this seriously. Those are the people that you got to be concerned with, because let's just say little Billy goes out and plays basketball, right? And little Johnny's grandmother has the coronavirus. Johnny has the coronavirus, gives it to Billy. And what happens when Billy goes home to his grandmother, and then all of a sudden she has the coronavirus? That's an extra death right there. And
exactly.
That's happening everywhere.
So I know I'm sure people are familiar with herd immunity, but just in case people aren't aware with it, herd immunity basically is just everyone's infected. Everyone has developed, or not everyone, but most of the people that have been infected have developed an immune response, and therefore they can no longer be infected, which means that they can't spread it further, and it basically kills off whatever's infecting that population. Now, with what we're seeing now, there's a kind of a social herd immunity, basically, with limiting contact, limiting hugs and kisses, your loved ones, limiting handshakes for formal greetings and all of that stuff. And I think that's a great way to really carry over from this pandemic moving forward into preventing like influenza from getting as bad as it usually does, or even the common cold for that matter. So I think in that way, we're starting to see some beneficial social changes, I think, which might help the population later on after we're done with this
Matt.
coronavirus stuff.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, what do you think about the response of the general population, not the government response of the people around you and, in your region?
Well, more or less, they have rolled out new regulations. For example, when I took a taxi home yesterday, I wasn't actually allowed to sit next to the driver. I had to sit in the back of the van. There is some rules that are in place in shopping centers which limit frozen items to one per person of one particular item. Like, so say if you want to get 2 frozen spinach, you can't do that. You can only get 1. Whether or not that's really helped, I don't know, but I suppose it has helped a little bit, because I did notice there was still some food left in the frozen sections. It was just the meat that was completely wiped out. But yeah, the regulations, we are practicing social distancing here, I believe. So, like I said before, can't sit next to the cab driver who interacts with thousands of people a week. Can't sit next to I think on a bus, I think people actually have to be spaced out by 2 seats, I believe. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it's just something I heard about. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they're doing. But whatever they're doing, I'm sure a lot of people are practicing that. I don't know much about anything else, really. That's the only other issue I've had with just trying to go about my daily business in the city, is that there seems to be a lot of people that don't seem to really give a crap about this whole thing. And there isn't that many cases here yet, but I mean, I live directly in the center of Brisbane City, and Chinatown is literally 400 meters away. When I walk outside, I have to be wrapped up like a mummy. Like, I have to cover my eyes, cover my ears, cover my nose and mouth. Otherwise, there's a huge risk that I could end up with anything, really. So there's always that fear that I experience, because my mum is actually extremely vulnerable to this thing, because she has kidney disease, diabetes, blah, 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 sickle cells. And from what I've read in some articles, this virus actually destroys cells rather quickly. And because she has such weak cells, it may cause a lot more significant damage compared to a normal, healthy, like, say, 25-year-old. I mean, she's in her 60s right now. So what I've done is I've taken extra precautions to ensure her safety. For example, I just make her cover up, just wear a scarf around her mouth. It doesn't have to look too crazy. And
you also have to go well above that too.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't just protect yourself. You have to also, if you're talking to anyone else in your life, you have to make sure that they too are also exercising these precautions.
Yes, I actually live in one room. She lives in another room. So we're basically isolated from each other right now. And that's basically what we were told to do by our local general practitioner. He said, make sure that you guys keep your distance whenever you can, which makes sense, especially given my proximity to, a major city. Like, I'm right in the middle of a really densely populated area. So there's definitely a high risk for me to get infected. That being said, if I take these precautions, I do believe there is a chance that me and Mum can probably survive this without getting infected. But
that's the thing, though. Will people take those? Like, you can do all that, but what happens when you have a lot of people that don't follow it? Fortunately, you're going to see a lot of infrastructural.
That's what I said before. There are some people that just don't care about this whole thing.
Well, that's why we need to make sure that we have an established form of community, not just in local communities, but globally, really.
Yeah.
I think this is a great opportunity for that.
No, yeah, and I'd rather have the people who are overacting and, prepping up a ton and not touching or interacting with people, because worst case scenario, what happens? They have extra food, and 4 weeks from now, everything's fine.
I just sent a picture of my local Coles supermarket, completely gone.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I have a few pictures of that, and yeah. Another aspect though, but people are thinking also with the supply lines is UPS recently sent out an email memo. I'm not sure how many people order packages off of UPS, but if you read it, they essentially are saying, like, anybody who has a small cold or whatever, they're not going to allow them to ship packages with UPS. And I think that's going to be terrible, because what happens if you need essential medical supplies and you're ordering something from Europe or from China for Australia, whatever it may be, that's going to be, your standard 7-day shipping. Well, now it's 14-day shipping. Then it becomes 30-day shipping, and so on and so forth. And then all of a sudden, it takes 2 months until this package arrives. That could be essential medical equipment. You're going to see this with all different supply chains. Truckers are, rough and rugged, and it's good that they are like that. But eventually, some of them are going to get sick, and that will disrupt the supply lines around the world.
And they're
eventually
there's going to
be
keep working. They're not just stop because they think they have the sniffles or the cough, or
they sneeze on your package. What happens?
Exactly.
And then it's
they're working out of self-interest, and for good reason. I mean, everyone has to pay their bills, right? But we still need to think about the bigger picture here.
Yeah. Matt, you saw the thing I typed over there, right?
Yeah. So we should probably move on to
that topic, right?
Yeah.
You do the intro for that.
Okay. So I'm pretty sure we all work. I would hope so.
No, I'm on government welfare.
It's nice to have money. It's nice to not have to, use food stamps. But
productive members of society.
I'll start with you guys first. Because for me it's quite simple. I basically work from home. What is it like for you guys? Being in the big city, Big Apple, around that area. And
I'm not commuting into work anymore. This is mostly going to apply to Yoshi and Toast, who still are traveling. I'm working from home now.
Yeah,
but,
how's the traffic?
Yoshi, do you want to start?
So you want to know about the traffic? Because honestly,
your traffic in Alaska.
There's not really any traffic. Was there anything another specific thing, Matt?
Oh, just overall the general census within your coworkers. Are they nervous to work? Are they okay with it and stuff like that?
Okay, so I just finished with one job, and I'm moving to a different job where I will actually have good hours even during this whole crisis. But the one that I'm leaving, at one point, so it seemed like every day, the work situation just got worse and worse. Because at first, only a certain amount of workers could be in at that day. And everybody was working the days they were supposed to, but everybody's schedules got messed up. The shifts started getting cut in half, and then eventually it got to the point where one person per you would get 1 day in the week to work, and then eventually, as of right now, they just shut the place down. So luckily, I just at the right time moved to a different job where it doesn't look like my hours are going to get cut at the moment, but my coworkers there, they got kind of screwed over because now they got to worry about paying the rent. As far as nervousness, I would say my coworkers are pretty nervous about the situation.
Yeah, that sort of happened on my end as well. I actually work in the back of a store. So, I handle most of the data entry here for the other people I work for, and in the store is, I basically handle stocks and packages of stuff that's coming in and out from the trucks. And I noticed in the last couple of weeks, they actually told us that we'd be better off just if we just took a couple of weeks off. So I think it was on the 19th, they actually all rang us up and said, hey, this thing's getting crazy. You guys just want to hang tight for a little bit, and I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. But that's basically what happened. It just came to a complete stop instantly. It wasn't really a gradual roll off.
Now, in
Anyway.
terms of my commute, it's honestly, in terms of commuting, boy oh boy, is it magnificent. It's just there's not that much people on the road anymore, and even just going through rush hour, it's a dream, man. I like in that sense, it's wonderful for me, but it has that kind of dark undershadow, like where it's a foreboding sort of silence that you experience right before a storm, right? So it's although the commute itself is pleasant for me, I do understand why it's happening, and in that sense, it's kind of disturbing. In terms of the general workforce, I work for a biotech company, so we are very aware of the supply chain disruptions, and everyone's very freaked out about whether or not we're going to be able to sell products to people, if they're going to get there in time, whether or not we're going to get all the raw materials that we need. There's just a lot of anxiety, generally speaking, within my company.
I guess I'll take the floor for that. Yeah, I work for a company that deals with telecommunications and servers and so forth in IT industry. So my last day working there was a week from today, which I say March 12th, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, yeah. So what wound up happening with that is even during, like we were talking about it, people are more or less concerned about stock market finances as far as that was concerned and so forth, and just how far it would go down. A lot of people, I know people who've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in value in their assets. They were getting creamed by that. They're not necessarily concerned about their jobs because, technically speaking, we are considered, mandatory telecommunications. I'm not going to say what companies we do manage, but we do a lot of internet-based commerce, and we control a lot of things, making sure those services stay online. As far as how has it affected us, because you can't have gatherings of more than 10 people and so forth, we're rotating one or two guys to head those data centers, and we don't have enough technicians to really work on, our data streams to go in a normal flow. So most of the work is a lot of people working remotely on that end, but we don't have enough hardware technicians to go in there and change hard drives and whatever it may be, and just to do general maintenance. It's almost kind of reminds me of how Houston deals with the International Space Station. You have 3 people in the ISS, but there's a huge team managing it, from the ground. Kind of the way our workflow has kind of changed. They are supposed to be sending us ID badges. New York City, from what I heard from my boss, that they can scan in and say that you're essential personnel. I don't know when they're going to do this. I've heard theories saying a month from now. I've heard theories and so forth, but maybe more, maybe less. What would happen is the NYPD would scan that, look you up in database. Okay, you're good. Show them the ID, almost kind of like a press pass or whatever it may be at a convention. And you'd go in and do your essential job, your essential work, because yeah, they are going to go into quarantine. New York City most likely will go into a quarantine, as what we know as of this point, as March 20th. And, again, 2 days ago, there was 5,000 cases in New York. There's over 7,000 right now. It's most likely going to be 10,000 by the end of the week.
Mm.
It is becoming rampant, and our economy is going to have to start switching to, a lot of people working at home and a lot less people in the office. For some industries, that's fine. That's like you have a lot of older CEOs that, don't know, oh, wow, you guys are just as productive at home as you would be here.
Yeah, but for someone like me who has to actually physically hold and carry things and
I totally get
and all of that stuff, it's just not possible for people
there's
like
a term
myself.
there's a term people are calling it is the stay-at-home economy, and obviously it's not as big as we kind of still are on Wall Street and Nasdaq. It's going to impact a lot. A certain Netflix took a hit, but it's kind of steadying up when people realize, a lot of people are going to be watching Netflix over the weekend and over the few weeks people have off, maybe a month at this point, maybe 2 months. Our the way we commute, the way we're doing work is very different. I wake up at 8 a.m. I go in, wake up, brush my teeth or whatever, take a shower, and then around 8:30, I go ahead, log onto my computer, see if there's any work for me to do, double check my servers, make sure the heat is right, make sure the hard drives are filling up, manage my data, and then we do our conference call around noon, and then my shift is usually over around 4. I've been doing that for basically the last week now. It's a very different workflow, a type of workflow that you have to be very disciplined for. But yeah, don't get me wrong. I definitely feel the cabin fever. I do kind of miss. I mean, I commute. My commuting time is about 90 minutes there, 90 minutes back. It's about 3 hours of total time of my day that is going to just commuting. I kind of miss that at this point. I never thought I would. In Toast, I pass it back to you.
The only modes of transportation that you're missing from your usual commute is planes and ships, right?
For me,
you use a train and a car, basically, right?
Yeah, I do. I basically drive to a train station.
Now, let's segue onto that. Let's segue onto that in terms of trains and traveling that way. As the virus began to become more and more prevalent throughout your local community, even New York City, but let's just keep it local. What kind of social changes have you noticed in people in terms of using the train?
A lot of what I said before. There's a lot of people who are taking it extremely seriously, and then people are not taking it serious enough.
Some people are wearing masks. Some people aren't.
Some people aren't. Yeah, I've noticed New York City at this point is definitely taking it serious. When I go in, it's mostly almost everybody's wearing masks. Honestly, it almost feels apocalyptic out there. You come out of Penn Station, you've never seen the city more underpopulated. I've never seen the city more underpopulated in my life. It looks at it like a scene out of The Division. If anybody's played that game, it's actually very somber and like kind of Toast was explaining it. It's cool. Like, oh wow. First you go like, wow, this is crazy, but then you're like, wow, this is crazy, and kind of a different, like, kind of sad. The state we are living in right now, and nobody would ever have expected it. As far as government response, I'll kind of switch topics over there. If Toast, you want to kind of ask any questions about what I've kind of said in my last statement about work.
You explained in the past in this call basically that there are several provisions in place that your state as a whole has enacted and your New York City has enacted. You suspect that you're going to see a quarantine, basically. Can you just define what you mean by that to listen?
Oh, as in quarantine, that is going to be kind of the Italian place. Nobody's allowed to go out except for essential personnel, and it's going to be basically medical, some transportation, and you might even see CVS's and Walgreens and basic food places to lock down for a little bit. That cannot last long. That's going to probably, you're probably going to see a quarantine, but I don't see that lasting more than a week. I expect the city of New York to give us enough time to prep for that. I have relatives who live in the city of New York. I will go over there and I'll make sure they have enough supplies. Long Island is different, and so forth. They probably will have checkpoints at all the bridges and tunnels, make sure, who's going in and out and so forth. This is becoming definitely very rampant. But more or less on top of that, it's interesting, the government response. I kind of wanted to switch the topic just a little bit to what does everybody think about $2,000 we may be getting, the Trump bucks and so forth. Matt, you want to elaborate on that? I know you're from Australia, but this is going to be interesting.
Here we go. it was actually quite funny to see some certain people actually oppose Trump's proposal. Of course, they'd have to be Democrats, but if they don't want him to give people that much money, at least give people enough money to cover the cost for the coronavirus testing kits. Because they're like $140, and you're gonna wait 3 days to even get them anyway. So at least cover the cost of that. That's the least they could do, quite honestly. But
there's a strategy. There's other strategies that you can use as well, such as working with, for example, people that rent apartments. Try and work with those landlords and make it so that we'll move your payment back X amount of months or whatever, or even just freeze it entirely. I know that's going to be a massive blow to the landlords, but at least you don't have to give $1,000. Yeah, at least you don't have to give $1,000 to every single person making, what is it, like less than 75,000 or something like that.
I heard something in my state might subsidize that, and you just have to file how much your tenant is paying you and so forth, and then you just submit that out to the governor's office. And they would. Speaking of governors, though, my state, New York, our governor, which I usually not a big fan of, has been working real well with the Trump administration as far as getting the funding and supplies we need in order to keep the city afloat and so forth, and kind of has been really on top of things and taking it seriously. And thank God. The mayor of New York, I can't really say the same, but definitely Governor Cuomo has.
Yeah, let's release all the prisoners into general population. That'll.
I think that was a De Blasio thing. That was definitely more of a
man. Most people in New York City, from what I understand, just absolutely despise De Blasio.
Yeah. I mean,
we're talking working class New Yorkers, not just like fanatic liberals or anything like that. They don't count.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like it becomes a lot better than the other guy. My question, though, this is, let's kind of go around. I want to see Yoshi's take on this first. I'll go last on this one. That $2,000, I guess, bailout, you can say. Is that good thing for most Americans, good thing for the economy, or bad thing? I'll go Yoshi, Toast, and then myself, and then Matt, you're Australian, so you'll see the most objective viewpoint. So, Yoshi, go ahead.
So, I mean, it depends, so where would this money, yeah, it'd be nice to get that, but it's like, where's the money coming from? Is it just, okay. but so, the perspective for me is interesting because, so for most Americans, this is a new thing, just getting this is it $2,000 or $1,000?
$2,000 for adults, I think $1,000 for children. As of right now, it could change.
Yeah. So this reminds me of something. So if anyone in the lower 48 or elsewhere in the world doesn't know, Alaska has something called the permanent fund dividend, which is money that the citizens of Alaska get back every year from oil revenue. So
really?
this reminds me of that. So from my perspective, it's just kind of just an extra dividend.
So is this just going to come off of Chinese tariffs in the future? Maybe.
Oh, so you're kind of used to something like this, the government just giving you back money that's interesting. That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah. But see, with our dividend, though, we know, it comes from the oil revenue, what we make off of oil. So, so we know the source of that, and, it's a sustainable thing since we've been doing it since the 1980s. I'm not so sure because I don't know, where that money is going to be pulled from. So, I like our state's dividend, but, this, I'm unsure, because of just where the source is. That's where it makes me like on the fence.
And I agree with you, Yoshi. You basically touched the same points that I would present as well. So, in regards to where this money is coming from, I think the answer is pretty clear. We're kind of just taking money from our future, more or less. We're borrowing from our future investments or GDP in general. The only other way that you can really pay for it is to slash taxes, and we know that Congress has been having problems with really getting these sort of bills going through, and it's just not going to end very well with that. So, although on paper it seems like a great idea, I just think that there could be a better way to help Americans out through such a troubling time like this. Cole, do you have any other things to add to that?
I'm going to go a little bit more moderate on this perspective. Just for the record, I'm kind of more right-wing and libertarian. Yeah, it's kind of a very interesting time politically that you're seeing people like AOC, Andrew Yang, and Bernie Sanders support Trump over giving out just $2,000 out of the blue like this. It almost seems very socialistic in nature. Because yeah, Toast, you're absolutely right. It is definitely taken from, from our future. It's definitely going to raise the national debt. There's no ends about it. But the question I kind of have, and I'm going to definitely go more on the adult perspective right now. So every citizen's going to be getting $2,000, and it really depends on if they're not struggling. How are they going to spend that $2,000? Are they going to spend it on a local business? Are they going to spend it to get a certification for some job?
I think spend it on.
Or just borrow it on drugs.
Hold on, yeah. Hold on. Let me just kind of finish my statement though. Are they? It really depends on the individuals as a whole. Yeah, on the pessimistic side of me, I think they're just gonna blow it away by a nice TV and whatever. If they're not financially being hurt on this, are they gonna invest it in the stock market? Are they gonna throw here whatever? Yeah, Toast, you can go ahead and reply on that.
Well, for example, with buying or purchasing a television, that still stimulates the local economy somewhat. But it's let's just assume that everyone is going to be socially responsible with, and this is obviously not going to happen. But let's just assume people will be socially responsible with the money they get. For me, I would probably just dump it all into student loans. And I think most people that are in my generation would do the same, honestly. And that could help to reduce the burden on student loans. And I know that I think there was a bill that was passed that helps people with student loans. I think that's great. I think it's great that they're deferring payments for 60 days or something like that with no interest on top of those 60 days. I think things like that are more pragmatic with helping Americans than just giving them a fucking shit ton of money, relatively speaking.
Yeah, there's almost a little too much freedom in this. I'm gonna just disagree with you a little bit. Yeah, I know you're saying empowering themselves, but even if they started buying some luxury goods or whatever product that is not essential, we are getting some tax revenue on that. There is sales tax. There is, that company is going to get taxed in the future if they make more revenue because of this. So it's not as much of a loss as people may say, depending if they spend it. It'd almost be worse if they saved it, in all honesty, because it wouldn't
probably save it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, most people, so a lot of people would, but if it was something like you got to spend this and you got to have fun kind of thing, this is funny money, and you have like 30 days to spend it. Yeah, that'd be kind of fine. Honestly, I'd be more in favor of that because it would just, on the economics perspective, it would actually, people would wind up getting more products and so forth like that. Big issue though, you wind up deflating the value of the dollar because every single person has $1,000 now. I mean $2,000, and
Here's a way
And you wind up having an issue with that. But go ahead.
Here's a way you could treat this, and this is pseudo shit posting, but maybe we should just give everyone crypto. I think that could be an interesting way.
Without going full ANCAP, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a kind of a nice happy medium, right? Without truly devaluing the dollar, I guess you could say. But in a way, it kind of does, but it's just kind of that weird gray area.
People in finance are going to really love. And it depends on how they, according to the plan, they want to give every American, even children, $1,000. Anybody under 18 years old, $1,000.
Man, I'm born way too late, man.
Dude, oh yeah, imagine you're 6 years old and your mom just gives you $1,000. Go to Toys R Us. Like, I mean, our generation, Toys R Us, but like, a kid these days, or whatever. That type of purchasing would change our entire economy, the way we look at things, because you're talking about a class of people that never historically ever was able to have any type of purchasing habit. So we can actually kind of predict the purchasing habits or interest, more or less, of those individuals. Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. Yeah, there are going to be a lot of Fortnite cosmetics and skins that are be purchased. Epic Games going to love this dividend, or whatever they want to call it. This national dividend, I guess. I mean, a dividend, you need to make money to a dividend, like Yoshi was saying, like an oil dividend. But this would be very interesting, especially now. I was going to kind of pass the floor to Yoshi for 1 second. So children will get this dividend. Now, is it the parents? Because this is going to be a little messed up if all of a sudden a mother who has like 3 kids, she's getting $1,000 for each of those kids for herself, and she's spending on makeup or whatever.
Someone just goes to an orphanage and just like cleans up with 10 kids or something, and now she's entitled to all those dividend payments.
That's what I'm saying is a little messed up. I kind of want that freedom for the child to have that. Yoshi, you guys have a dividend. Does that people under 18?
So like I was saying before, if you are a citizen of Alaska, you get the dividends. That goes for kids even. Though I believe, so the parents or the legal guardians have control over it, though. So
that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, so there is like sometimes that situation, or like you'll have a case of like 2 parents being separated, and one tries to like is just greedy and tries to get like their kids' dividends, and like the other parent gets screwed over. So yeah, that is a problem. So
probably a better practice, if that wasn't possible, probably would be bind it to the kids' Social Security, so the second they open up their own bank account in their name, when they wind up getting that dividend.
So you're saying it's like on lockdown until they are 18?
Probably a better idea, economically speaking. I would also like to see the experiment if somehow you're able to guarantee the 6-year-old having that $1,000.
Yeah, but yeah, again, let's think about it this way. Like, what are you going to purchase when you're like, even like a 16-year-old, like Cheetos and a Coca-Cola or something?
In person finance, we're going to love that data. Yeah. I'm just saying. I mean, I'm sounding greedy here. To be honest, we're going to love that type of purchase and habits. We're going to know where to invest in very easily with that.
Just in terms of like really maximizing the amount of stimulus, though, it's not going to be the best to give it to the kids.
No, I agree. That's kind of why I proposed why not bind it down until they're 18.
It's not going to help in the near term.
That's the thing. It doesn't help in the near term.
That's the entire point of this.
Yeah. Then it's a selfish act, because all of a sudden it's like, oh, cool, I have $1,000 when I'm 18 years old, but like now look. I mean, seriously speaking, if somehow I actually do, I agree. I think everybody should have this, even a newborn, a 6-month-old. Anybody who's born after a certain date should get this dividend. Is what I would say. So, I mean, again, it's the parents that are going to be able to do it. I guess if somehow you can legally prove it, the there should be kind of some redundancy system to make sure the parents spend it on their kids or whatever. I guess you, by extension, well, I spent food on them. I spent over $1,000 in food. That's what I used the dividend for.
Yeah, otherwise I'm just going to go to an orphanage and just adopt 50 kids.
Yeah. But even the orphanage is going to be able to say, oh, yeah, the 50 kids or whatever, I spent $50,000 on so-and-so, But, yeah, no, there's definitely flaws in this system. But, I mean, I think it would take
up a lot
more.
Yeah.
I think somebody like Yoshi, somebody from Alaska needs to definitely be the ones to show us how this works.
Right. It's proof in principle.
I guess we can kind of conclude on finishing thoughts, I guess, Matt. Up to you.
Yeah, sure.
Unless, actually, Matt, before we go into that, your thoughts on the dividend aspect on the economics being not from the United States.
I mean, I could give an unbiased opinion, nonpartisan opinion on this because, I mean, I live in Australia, so. But look, I don't think it's the worst idea in the world. I don't think it's like. I can see it helping you guys, but at the same time, that's still money that you're throwing out. That government corporations and a lot of medical facilities need, to keep supplying people with treatment. But at the same time, where the hell are people going to get the money from to even afford the treatment in the first place? So it does make sense, and it does help businesses because businesses are really in the shit right now. Like everything's shut down, everything's closed down. A couple $1,000 is the least that you could do for people. I do think it's a good idea, but there's always a risk factor there. But I do think that the positives outweigh the negatives a substantial amount. I wouldn't say overwhelmingly, but it definitely will help in some areas. Some areas not so. Just a few areas not so much. For example, just the fact that you're a government, you control the country, you have to make sure, you got hospitals running, you've got the roads all, fixed up, and you're just throwing some more money at the people, which is, a lot of people would say it is a good thing for them because, hey, when was the last time the government threw you free money, but...
Oh, yeah, it's a moral act. It's definitely a moral act.
Yeah, it's definitely a moral act, and that's the thing that I think is... Well, it does make it seem like it's a wholesome thing to do. Honestly, I do not object to it. But it's the risk. This risk is still there. You got all this. That's a lot of people you guys have in your country. It's like several hundreds of millions of people, and they're going to be getting $2,000 each.
325 million last time I checked.
So do the math. What's 300 million.
1%, even a fraction of a percent that just end up buying really stupid shit.
That's $600 billion you guys are going to be throwing out to most of your people, or at least half of that.
Yeah.
So
So maybe a way to resolve this is to something like the opposite of a cryptocurrency situation, where instead of having sort of an anonymous way of transactions, you have a way that's traceable for this $1,000 or whatever. That way, that if there's anything that's, and I'm usually against these government regulation bullshit things, but this is a special case. Let's face it, where you can be tracked on your purchasing with this $1,000 or whatever. That way, the government can see where the money is going, and if it's going to just fucking lol drugs or whatever, maybe there should be some fines associated with it.
Yeah, because a lot of people are just on the street and they probably won't even bother applying for the money anyway. So it's just.
Oh yeah, there's that problem too. I mean, also another aspect is, we need to bind it to the individual, especially somebody who's under 18 years.
Still, several hundreds of billions of dollars.
Oh yeah, it's a crap ton of money, but
we need to make it work as well as possible.
Most will, yeah.
It's not going to do anything. It's just
maybe you bind it to the individual's fingerprint or something like that. So when they purchase, in order to check out or something, they have to put their fingerprint on a scanner or some crap like that, or on their phone. I mean, I don't know.
I'm just worried that's going to create a slippery slip situation, and where other bills are going to be passed that will track you completely with.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
You can tell that over to advertisement agencies, and then they can just play around with data until they make infinite money, basically.
Politically, we are in completely unorthodox times right now. Like, I mean, you're talking about somebody like...
We're definitely in uncharted territory right now.
Yeah.
It's kind of concerning.
It's concerning. It's weird. It's kind of interesting also at the same time. I mean...
Oh, definitely, dude. I think 10 years from now, we're going to see some very interesting theses, psychological theses, financial theses. It's just going to be very interesting.
Oh yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting because it's like you have Trump teaming up with like Bernie Sanders and stuff to give $1,000 to everybody, but then you have people like Schumer like against it for some reason, even though he spends like millions and billions of dollars in New York State. It's a lot of hypocrisy going on, and then you have like some Republicans that are against Trump, and but then you have other Republicans that are like, well, since Trump said it, it's good. It's like, well, okay, you're just towing the party line. What the hell?
This is just some 10D chess, I think, maybe.
It's a rather stirring situation, to say the least.
I wish it was just 4D chess. I mean, maybe I'd be able to understand it. But you're right, it is probably like 10D chess at this point. I don't even know. I mean, do you really think that Trump proposed this just so like it could get shot down and make it look better for his, contingency? Like, listen, man, I was going to give all of you $2,000, but the Congress didn't want to allow it, so
hey, man,
sorry.
It's good posturing, dude. So I mean, in this event where he has a lot of the media trying to like burn him up completely because
wouldn't put it past him. Yeah
he's been like, I mean, I'm sure you guys heard it over the radio or whatever, the internet or anything. It's just, Trump calls the virus of the Chinese virus, and he is a racist, and all this fun stuff.
Yeah. I guess we'll go full roundtable here. Like, what do you guys think was like the most interesting effect out of the coronavirus so far? I guess I'll pass it to Yoshi first, and then Matt.
The most interesting effect?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess just like, well, it's like, with the toilet paper thing, it's just like, yeah, because if you think about it, like, okay, I could see that if like it was a thing like that caused like diarrhea, but no, it causes an infection of the lungs, like.
I know how half of these movements begin. There's just these groups on Facebook, and they, just normies that just go on there and they believe anything they read on there, and they're like, hey, if you buy toilet paper, it'll be good. It'll get rid of the virus or whatever because it causes diarrhea.
I don't think they believe that. No, I think it's more. They're thinking about supply chains, but they taken it to such a degree that it's like unnatural and like, dude, you don't need 100 rolls of toilet paper.
Oh wait, haven't people done this before? Didn't toilet paper get sold out like in previous pandemics?
Yeah, but not at this level. Like, this is insane.
Well, I guess they're taking of what knowledge they had from the past and applying it now in more extreme measures, more extreme levels.
Let's face it, with doing your business on the throne, it's part of level 0 civilization, and we kind of like that here.
Yeah.
We're living in a clown world.
I guess Toast, most intrigue and effect from COVID-19.
I mean, I agree with Yoshi with the whole toilet paper meme. I think it's pretty funny to me, and it's kind of sad at the same time. And I also I've been talking to like a lot of different people in my area just to see how they're thinking about everything, and it's kind of unfortunate to see the older people that are just trying to get through their day, and you can tell that they wear their medals and their hats that like say they were in whatever division or something, and I feel really bad for these people because they work so hard to get to where they are now, and now they just get this. They just can't like get basic supplies. And I know there's provisions in place now that allow for senior citizens and everything to like come in a little bit earlier so that they can beat the crowds, and that's awesome. But I know it's a little bit of a ramble, but it's, I guess the most interesting thing really is just the social effect this is causing onto everything.
I think the very interesting effect with this is when you talk to people, and some of the people you may have told like months ago, I know especially me and Toast, where all of a sudden you say like, "Oh man, this thing in China, it's kind of getting bad out there. What do you think?" And some people are like, "Yeah, that's China. That's nothing to do with us or whatever. It's fine." And then all of a sudden it's like in Iran, and they're just like, "Yeah, it's third world country and whatever. It's not going to affect us." You show them Europe, and they get a little bit more concerned. They're like, "Oh man, that kind of actually. I guess we didn't know how bad their medical care or whatever was over there." And then finally it gets into your city or your town, and you see these people kind of switch from one way to the other. Either like they either go, honestly, the stages of denial are completely real when it comes down to it. You have people that go, "Oh yeah, it's not that bad. I mean, let me make it a big whoop about it. It's whatever. It's fine, man. We don't need that much supplies. It's whatever." But then you have other people who finally switch. He's like, "Oh man, Gold, you're right. Damn, how are you so ahead of the curve on this stuff?" and so forth. I have a ton of people, neighbors, and people from work and so forth, and people online that are just like, "Geez, you predicted this real ahead of everybody else. That you said it was going to get bad and so forth." And you have others who are still kind of somewhat in denial of it, and you really can't blame them because this has never been done before. It's something a pandemic like this is in the information age, in the modern age. We kind of thought, oh, that's something that happened in the 1800s, or the Spanish flu in the 1920s or whatever, early 1900s or whatever. And this could never. A lot of people just thought it could never happen again. We thought we had this very modern, nice society where just everything would just work. And you see a lot of people almost going full freak out panic mode and just realizing everything they know and love and their way of life is just going to get worse over the next year or so, maybe 2 years. And they don't really know how to put everything together, and some are going full denial. Again, like I said, people at my block that are playing the streets, it's like, guys, what are you doing? You're just spreading the virus. You can't blame them 100% because they have cabin fever now, and they just want to go outside, and they just want to pretend that it's not real, and they just want to go out there. And again, we don't have a lot of cases infected. Yeah, right now it's 250,000 people worldwide. Who knows? It could be 10 million. It could be. There's a lot of numbers that we don't know about, and this is spreading faster than anything we had in the last 100 years or so. Again, that's because of modern travel and so forth. You got to add all those factors, and we know how to detect things, but I know this is getting kind of rambly and kind of long, but you're going to have a lot of people that will push back. It's changing right now. Most people are taking this seriously now for the most part, but I mean, you'll have your 25%. It's just like, oh, it's just a flu, bro. I mean, Medicare is constantly making fun of those people on Twitter. If you look at Mr. Anti-Bully Twitter and so forth, and it's kind of, yeah, a lot of people are just. And then there's that third section of people. These are the people that are resistant, the people that don't believe it's a thing, and then people who are just gonna have a laugh or a joke about it. I'm for it because at least at the end of the day, they're having a little bit of laugh or chuckle just to relieve the stress of the whole situation that the whole world's finding.
That's basically what all these guys on 4chan or whatever are doing, making those waifus. It's just
Reddit or whatever.
It's just how they cope. They're coping whoobs. I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, Toast, you want to have a reply to that?
No comment.
But yeah, that would be basically my response to it. And I guess Matt, and then I guess after that we're just gonna do final statements. So go for it, Matt, right now.
I don't really know what else to add. I could definitely just say one thing. This is not a drill. This is serious shit. People need to start to take this more seriously. because, you know, having the wrong attitude about this is what's going to cause the virus to spread even more rapidly than it already is right now. So, you know, the least people could do is to try to at least slam on the emergency brakes right now and just try to slow this down even just slightly, because...
Or even just air brake it with your shirt.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know, wash your hands, guys.
Yeah, wash your hands, sing happy birthday, you know, fuck.
Yeah. All right, I guess closing statements, and Matt, I guess you'll go last.
Yeah.
Go first, then Toast. Go ahead, Matt.
Oh, we're done?
Oh, no. I was gonna say just closing statements.
Oh yeah. Oh, that was basically my closing statements there.
Okay.
I suppose.
Yoshi. I guess Yoshi and Toast, real quick. I guess if you guys want to do your closing statements.
I'm cool with my last comment being air braking shirt.
And Yoshi, yourself.
So, yeah, it's extremely worrying because, you know, like today, you know, I asked my mother, you know, since I was a kid when swine flu hit, you know, I asked her, you know, like, was it anything like this when you were working? Like, did your schedule change or anything? She's like, no. And like, you know, swine flu was one of the things we did consider bad. So the fact that like this is like affecting like everybody's like work schedules, or if they can even come into work, it's extremely worrying. And yeah, I don't know what the future is going to hold as far as that goes.
Could be some Mad Max Tank Girl dystopian future coming up.
Yeah. I mean, if I was going to say, you know what, if you overreact, at least we at least in the end of the day will have a good laugh. Somebody overreacted about this. It's like, man, you stocked up 100 rolls of toilet paper or whatever, and you did all this, and you thought the world was going to end. You know, at least we prevented it, and, you know, you guys were prepared and so forth, because the other response is worse. It's 100 times worse if you're not preparing and you're still just doing your weekly shopping. Like, you know, your store is going to be there, like, you know, in the future and so forth. Like, nothing's going to happen. Again, we are talking about supply chains disruptions and so forth. And the thing I want to say is just everybody take this seriously. And if you're not panicking, this is probably the time to panic, but do it in a rational,
panic rationally if you're gonna panic.
If you're gonna panic, do it in a normal way. Don't be an idiot.
Guys, don't take all the toilet paper. Please leave some for some of the older folks.
I mean, that's why they're opening the stores early so the older people can run in there and grab it.
That's great.
Listen, man, I know you're trying to get like 100 bottles of water, but dude, you're probably going to get some water within 6 months, all right? Generally speaking, this is how it goes. It's not going to be the end of the world, but at the same time, it's going to be rough. It's going to be hard out there, and we definitely take this seriously, and this is definitely a world pandemic event. You know, don't deny it.
People need to stay optimistic, too. Look, tough times make tough people, and tough people make good times.
This is a very good learning experience. No doubt.
Hey,
we all know where it goes from there, but let's hopefully just not let it go any farther than good time, right?
Oh, if everything stops right now, and I'd be so happy. It would be great. I can go back to work. I can make money. But you know, everything else, you know, everything going on hold. If people just listen, you know, self-isolate, be sanitary, and so forth. And again, as messed up as this is, we're going to learn a lesson from it at the end of the day. We're going to need to be a more sanitary society. We're probably going to have to, you know, make stuff domestically. I mean, what is it? 90% of our antibiotics in the United States is made in China. Like, again, supply chain stuff is definitely going to be something we're going to learn about.
It's just not sustainable. We need to go back to becoming more of a sustainable country. And I think it's not just the U.S. I think most Western countries or Western affiliated countries are guilty with the same sort of idea here.
Yeah, but as kind of the finishing statement on, I'm mostly just gonna say it's just like be safe, be clean, everybody, and all you guys listen out there, just you know, hopefully this doesn't get worse, but you know, doesn't hurt, you know, to have a few extra bags of chips, a few extra water bottles, and so forth, and
Some rolls.
take
Animal-
some rolls of toilet paper.
And Animal
Prepare for
Crossing
maybe
just
a
came.
month or two.
And Animal Crossing just came out, so go
Oh,
grab
yeah.
that and use that to occupy yourselves when you're self-quarantined. It's a good game.
Hey guys, you have a lot of time. Play video games. You
New
know,
Horizons.
better yourselves in some ways. You're gonna have a month of time with yourself. You know, think about things.
Hopefully you're an introvert.
Well, I think you
Back
can.
to his-
I think you can still go to GameStop because don't they consider themselves an essential retail store?
Oh, we forgot about that. We'll put that for
they
another
just shut down in
podcast.
California, I think. GameStop. I think there are some.
I added that in the notes. Go
Mm.
ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, GameStop, essential personnel, guys. So remember that. Your video games are important.
Oh.
Well,
Hey, Matt,
GameStop
you-
has been kind of irrelevant for the past couple of years. Let's be real here.
Mm.
Yeah, of course. Matt, you can kind of close it off for everybody.
Anyway, guys, thanks so much for joining and just shooting the breeze about this crazy shit that's going on right now. Hopefully things at least move in a positive direction in some aspects, but I doubt, things will get easier very quickly. But we'll just have to wait and see how this plays out in the next period of 2 to 3 months. But for now, this is basically how we feel about it, and that's the bottom line. So thanks so much for watching and listening, and we will see you guys later. Take care.